Welcome and welcome back to anyone who has been to the previous session. My name is Christian from Essex Startups, and this is part of the AI Week series. So thank you for joining us. Obviously, for the duration of this session, please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A function or engage using the chat. That's about it for housekeeping. We are recording these sessions and we will be sending it out to anyone on their registration list, so you won't miss out. Also, we know that some of you do have exams or coursework, so don't worry if you miss anything. Today, I'm joined by Alice from AI for Good, who'll be telling us a bit about using AI, well, for good, for charities, sort of making everything fairer and better. So Alice.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Christian. So hi, guys. My name is Alice. I work for AI for Good, and AI for Good is a social enterprise that builds AI-powered technologies for the most vulnerable and underserved. The important caveat, as you can see on the slides, is that we build sustainable, scalable, and ethical technologies. So not just like any type of AI, but very particular about our choice of words here, because we're trying to create lasting positive outcomes for the people that we are trying to help. And for us, it's really important that whatever we do is obviously like ethical, obviously can be scaled to like a larger populations and across the world, but also is sustainable. So that means that we are not kind of creating any more, waste, or for example, not duplicating our technologies. So that's really, really important in our work. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about AI for Good, our projects, and also about our community, so that you can like see for yourself what we are, what we do, and maybe decide to join. So at first, I'd like to talk a little bit about the problem. So as we know, AI has the potential to solve the big societal problems, or as we say also like in AI for Good, the toughest challenges facing society today, from climate change to poverty to gender equality, healthcare, COVID-19, you name it. But obviously the challenge lies in kind of identifying where to direct your focus today. And ensure that the AI is used for good and delivers positive outcomes. So delivers impact, which is, positive for the society. The perception of its potential gets harmed by, obviously a lot of big corporations, but also smaller organizations using AI, particularly for gimmicks, something that is not really delivering any good, but just, creating a lot of hype about it, but it's not really solving anything. Also, when it's used to manipulate opinions, for example, the election scandal with Facebook, the famous thing that happened a few years ago, but also generally when it's used with bad intentions, so like, as a weapon. And we need to be aware of this, and obviously we need to be cautious, because any technology can be turned from, seemingly positive application to something that is not really like helping our society or vulnerable people. Also creates a lot of inequality, and therefore we need to be kind of like very cautious about the perception as well of AI, because if we now create a lot of distrust and a lot of issues with how AI is applied, chances are we're going to just miss this opportunity. And obviously for us, it's like another important mission for our organization is to actually to tell the good story of how AI could be, a source for like, positive change and force for good. So it's still a nascent field. So obviously the regulation, unfortunately, is not there yet. It's catching up slowly. So the EU, we know, is now working on some new rules. Recently, there's been like, some papers revealed about the upcoming regulation concerning AI field. So hopefully it's going to catch up very soon. But for now, it's our job, the people that create this technology, we need to be very careful about how we do it, how we design it, what intentions, what kind of like consequences we may bring with this technology. So obviously we need to think about it. So obviously AI is becoming ever more powerful and ubiquitous. As you can see, it's been used like in your telephone pretty much every day. Whatever you do, kind of like you interact with AI. Even like, your travel journey is usually guided by some sort of AI algorithm. So, maybe you're not knowingly, using AI pretty much every hour of your day. Whatever you see on internet, whatever you Google search for, whatever you watch online on Netflix, Amazon, you name it. There's so many applications of AI in day-to-day life. And with greater power, obviously, comes greater responsibility. So we need to be aware of this. And another important aspect is equality and making sure that everyone is included. So for us, it's not just about talking about the marginalized population or the people that don't have access to internet or choose not to use it, but it's also about the countries that are not there yet, so they're still dealing with their day-to-day issues, with poverty, with crime, with gender-based violence. And for them, this innovation agenda is not that important today, and it's really hard for them as well because of the resources, because AI requires a lot of skills, high quality talent, education. So obviously it's really, really hard to actually be on the front, of this race with AI. So we need to make sure that we help those countries, and we make sure that they also have access to this technology and use it for good and to catch up. And obviously practice makes perfect, as we love to say in technology world. Whatever you do, obviously, will create some small bugs, errors, issues, but the importance is to see them first and in the lab first, so before it actually harms any people. And the more you try, the more you kind of fail, the better you become in the end. And eventually when you build this really good, really impactful, positive technology, then you can actually scale it around the world. So another question you might ask is why now? So obviously we know that saving the planet today is one of the most important goals for us all. Obviously after COVID, dealing with this was kind of on our agenda for the past year or so. But starting from 2019, as you probably know, we are boring the regeneration capacity of our planet. So we need to be aware of this and be constantly alarmed. The need is to sustain our planet. Obviously there is some kind of ambitious plans of occupying Mars or maybe moon or maybe some other galaxies. That all sounds amazing. I'm very happy, and I'm actually quite passionate about this field in science, and I would love to see some breakthroughs in this areas, or at least see some first colonies appearing here and there. But it's not going to be very soon. It's going to take another number of years for sure, and it's not certain that we can just instantly do it like this and it's definitely going to be solving all our problems. Our home is still here, it's on this planet, so we need to make sure we sustain it as long as we can, and ideally don't destroy it forever, because even if we are lucky and we get to escape somewhere, it's just not reasonable to just destroy everything, use all the resources, and then we vanish. It's not how you do things in life. I think it's been our kind of habit for a long time. Now we need to probably change our habits a little bit. Obviously ethical AI, so another big dilemma. So there's a lot of principles that have been developed in this area, a lot of very good guides published by technologists themselves, lots of scientists, ethicists, philosophers thinking about these problems. I know at least, I don't know, a dozen in this area from all the best universities, from all the best companies, really good principles. And there's some sort of convergence happening right now. So you see that, the governments are looking at all these different, frameworks, and they're trying to see, the kind of the commonalities, trying to kind of make sure that it's in their policy, in their guidelines, written somehow, simple and succinct, and also there's a coherent strategy on how we actually are going to implement it. So not just a guidance as guiding light, but also exact steps on what to do and what not to do, what to avoid. So it's all great, and we're very happy to see this. We're happy that a lot of companies are talking about addressing bias in the data. So we obviously know that data is biased in the first place, because we people are biased, and this is we just we collect data in this way, we label it in this way because we as a society have a lot of prejudice. And obviously whatever goes into the algorithm then influences the decision making process. So we need to be aware of this, and obviously technologies are trying to tackle it with a lot of new techniques, both technical and involving more diverse teams in building AI. So it's great. Like, it's definitely the right point of time when we know that there's a lot of tools we can apply. So let's just do it. Let's just apply it. Let's just try it and see how it works in real life. And obviously, another thing that we talk a lot in the AI society is or community is the two kind of like paradigms or two scenarios for AI. One, like, both are, to be honest, very doomsday. So one is like another AI winter, which is very common. So there's been 2 winters already, if you guys know, and there might be another one. So the previous ones happened because there was not enough understanding of the technology, or there was not enough computational power, or the hardware devices were not ready for it. The data was not available in that kind of like big amount. So basically, always something would stop us. And now, like, it seems that there's no kind of like obstacle on the way, but we never know, right? So we never know what's going to be the next one. So it could be that there will be another obstacle, and we will just stop using AI for another winter, and it's going to be a missed opportunity. So we're not going to use it for good things as well as for some gimmicky stuff. But another extreme is dystopia, when like we actually have a lot of people, like actually really, really important influencer type of people, from Elon Musk to, you name it, so many like very important people in this field that are raising their concerns about AI kind of like singularity, which is one very typical scenario where the machines will outsmart us eventually, and the intelligence at that point will go exponentially, so we'll basically not be able to understand them. Similarly, how like we once surpassed the apes by intelligence, and we are not able to communicate any longer, so they don't understand us, we don't understand them.
If I may chip in there, I'm just preparing for when our robot overlords take over.
So yeah, basically robot overlords, or like there's a lot of really kind of like calm talk about this, as well as like oh, they're gonna do much better than we do, they're not gonna destroy the planet, they're gonna stop us at the right time. And you're like, okay, this all sounds like very interesting scenarios, I'm happy to consider them, but right now there's this opportunity, we can do good with it, right? So let's just use it for good. And that's why now it's the great time, because it's still not a winter, it's still not a doomsday scenario, end of the world, machines taking over. So let's just use this moment of time, especially after we learned so much from this pandemic. We learned so much in this past year, just sitting home and reading stuff and like acquiring new skills. Why not to use this knowledge for good? So this is basically, in a nutshell, why we created this organization called AI for Good. And right now we focus on 3 projects. So these are kind of like our flagship projects. I would say that also we try to keep it low, because we are a small company. We are trying to be kind of like a startup-ish technology type of company, right? So we don't want to grow too much, because we know if we grow, eventually it will become a bureaucracy, and we want to avoid it. We don't want to have like a lot of operations that don't make any sense or don't create any kind of positive impact. So we would like to keep it as small as possible. And for now, we can afford to have these 3 projects at the same time, run them successfully, and hopefully our team can like also improve their skills and actually like learn from this experience and become better, and maybe even like go to other fields and do some great impactful stuff there. So for now, it's there's 3 topics. So one is gender-based violence, and we focus on it together with our partners in South Africa. Why South Africa? I will tell you a little bit about it later, but in general, kind of we thought that it's probably one of those countries where gender-based violence is the biggest problem. Why? Because, you know, femicides, or the killings of the women by intimate partners, happens 5 times more often than anywhere else in the world. And you know, the reporting of domestic abuse, domestic violence cases is less than 1%. So less than 1% of cases are being reported. And obviously it's a huge, huge problem. You know, the president of the South Africa doesn't know how to deal with it. So he's been publicly speaking about this issue as a national kind of like emergency. And the whole kind of country is doing something, you know, including corporate sector, including, you know, all the smaller organizations, all the grassroots organizations, everyone is talking about this issue. So we thought, okay, this is kind of like the region where we want to pilot it, and obviously try to help the most vulnerable in this area. And if it happens to be a successful, you know, piece of technology, and if it's actually, you know, helping people, and people provide good feedback, and we see some actual results, then we're going to scale it elsewhere, because if it worked there, it, you know, chances are it will work somewhere else as well. Similarly with Sneha AI. So Sneha AI is our chatbot in India. It's designed for young people and adolescents. It's focusing on sexual and reproductive health education for young people. And a lot of time we kind of like try to avoid using textual information or boring kind of like, you know, advice giving kind of like situations, because this is not what young people or adolescents population in India wants. Obviously what they want and what they actually need is the type of engagement that they really enjoy and that they really like. And as you know, right now, the kind of like influence from TikTok, Instagram, whatever you name it, it's all about, you know, visual information. It's all about, you know, videos and engagement, and, you know, trying to break down the topics that are really complex and really kind of like difficult to understand, make it simple, make it like, you know, real world application. So we try to do it like really kind of on a very, you know, I would say bottom-up basis. So we try to, you know, listen to our users there, try to see what they like the most. For example, there's a lot of issues with sex being a taboo in India. So people just don't talk about it. Less than 25% of people, young people, have formal like education, have access to formal education in topics such as sex and reproductive health. When you go to like a community leader, or like, you know, one of your seniors for advice about, you know, not getting pregnant, they will just tell you, no, why? You should get pregnant. Doesn't matter what is your age. Like if you're 15, of course, when I was your age, like I already had 2. So, so like you just need to be aware of the situations, and you need to put yourself in the shoes of these young people and kind of try to, you know, experience life the way they experience it. And obviously, like, you know, there's a lot of other issues with this technology being a chatbot, so it's a lot of conversational kind of like you know, knowledge and techniques that we need to apply. India is a super diverse country with lots of dialects, you know. Obviously in the region where we work, a lot of people use Hindi, but they use it in English transliteration. So it's called Hinglish. And kind of like in rural communities specifically, they type the words and kind of spell them in all the different possible ways. So, you know, even to train our AI to understand this language was like a really, really hard problem for us. And plus with that, you know, the taboo topics such as sex, you know, for example, the word condom is a very embarrassing word. You would never use it in a conversation, right? So we had to come up with a new word. So thankfully we are working with a charity in this area, which is like a long established organization, knows this topic really well. So they did run a TV series or a TV show about this on the major TV channels. And and they introduce a lot of new kind of terms to substitute the terms that are taboo and embarrassing. So all thanks to that, we are now using these terms, and now it's creating like this new type of hype where there's video of someone dancing and kind of like chatting to their friends about condoms, but the term that they use is something else, and obviously it becomes like a cool happy thing to talk about. So yeah, this is what we are trying to do with Sneha AI in India. We have a lot kind of like a lot of users, so 136,000 and 8.5 million conversations, which is like a huge number. But don't forget that India is a huge country as well. It's over 1 billion population, and the young people and adolescents is about fourth of this population. So it's a very, very big population that we are trying to target here. And finally, the third program or project is called Future Makers. So this is not just one technology. This is actually a course or a program where we educate young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. Why did we decide to take this particular course, AI plus creativity? Is because we thought about the fourth industrial revolution changing the nature of work, what is going to be the job of the future, how to prepare yourself for it. Do you need to study to become like a lawyer today? What is going to be the lawyer's job tomorrow? We don't know yet, right? So there's a lot of like questions for young people, and especially kids from areas where their parents have to work on 2 jobs simultaneously, don't see their kids very often because of this, workload. Probably, even if they see each other, they probably won't spend this time, talking about AI changing the nature of work, or automation becoming this new shiny thing that everyone talks about. They're probably gonna, spend it somehow wisely. So we decided that we can step in and actually talk to young people about, this changing nature of work, but also like introduce them to AI, show that it's not like a very scary thing. Obviously, another thing that we discovered, before we started this course, we kind of surveyed a lot of young people at the age of 13 to 17, and they said, so we asked them, do you consider a career in AI? They said no. And those that said no, we basically asked, the second question, why? What's the reason? And 1/3 said they want to do something more creative with their lives, so become like an influencer or some sort of a celebrity, like do something, maybe an artist. And we were like, okay, we can make AI like really creative. And obviously, when you try to solve problems and build AI for social purposes, actually, it's a lot of creativity that you need, and problem solving abilities. So for us, it's not like a big change, in terms of our curriculum. So this kind of problem was sorted. The second group, third said that they didn't find themselves smart enough to build a career in AI. And obviously for us, it was like really sad. And we thought, okay, we need to unpack it. We need to break it down. We need to make it, really kind of interactive and show, these people that actually it's not that difficult. You can interact with AI today. You can build it. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. There are lots of applications that you can use even without knowing coding. But even like, learning how to code is not super difficult. So we kind of like included it in the course. And then the third one also said that they're just generally kind of like not interested in AI, and they never heard about it. And, this is why we decided, okay, we definitely need to just tell them about, what's happening in this area. And even if they don't like it in the end of the day, it's totally fine, we don't need to have all the people out there, doing something in AI. So we launched this course first as like face-to-face interaction. Then we moved to online last year. And to be honest with you, after launching it in 5 or more countries, including the UK, we decided that now we can actually launch it online as a kind of like a skills conversion course as well. So it's not only for young people. The course is really good, can be accessed by any kind of target group from any age perspective. It's interesting. It's, you know, it's teaching you how to build an AI for good technology. So for us, it's also like, you know, hitting another bird with that one stone. And yeah, so it's a really good
Actually,
course.
I
Yeah,
have several questions.
sure, yeah, go for it.
So we've got a question from the from a member of the audience. So we'll get to that in a second. My question about the future makers is the course itself. Then, do you teach people how to build AI algorithms? Then, do you actually get them to code in that? Let's say I myself, I touched on it, and there's an awful lot of statistics. I'm only in the beginning. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I can just imagine someone else learning it, and I do encourage people to start, but
yeah.
but yes.
That's why we kind of try to avoid, you know, math and statistics to start with. Obviously, we do show some basic stuff. So when you do, for example, Python exercises, you still have to do a little bit of, you know, math here and there, just to see how, Python and equations work in general. But, you know, speaking broadly, you know, you don't need to learn statistics or data science to actually access this course, because it's designed for young people. It's designed for, it's just like, you know, you use building blocks, so you use APIs from different companies to do, like, you know, for example, translation, right? And again, you don't need to understand the entire math and, you know, the actual kind of like code behind it. You actually can just plug it in to whatever you're trying to achieve. And for the purpose of this course, because it's only like, you know, usually when we teach it face to face, it's 2 days long, so it's 2 days 4 hours long, kind of like a workshop. And yeah, we couldn't put more into it. Obviously, like, if you want to learn it online, you can stretch it, but for the young people that went through it face to face, it was like 2 days, very kind of like you know, deep work with, you know, understanding the AI, understanding the concepts such as like ethics and human-centered design, playing with AI in terms of interacting with different APIs, and then trying to build some sort of web app using like very simple, again, services out there. And yeah, so for them it was more like, you know, an interaction with a real AI, and like see how seemingly not difficult it is to plug it in into
You
your
should
system.
probably not tell me who's like the youngest person to grasp it, because as I said, I'm at the beginning, so like, it would just make me feel bad about myself.
Yeah, the younger they are, the better they are, to be honest.
That's the scary thing, isn't it? But, okay, so we've got a question from a member of the audience. So it's Karina. She's on the ball, by the way, today. Other topics. She has been on it, asking questions, very interactive. So, question from Karina: do you find resistance when it comes to community leaders or governments for SNEH AI?
Yeah. So to be honest, right now, we don't have that much of a resistance. In the beginning, when we first, you know, partnered with this charity in India called Population Foundation of India, there was a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of, you know, resistance in terms of why do we need this technology? Why, you know, a chatbot, you know, how does it help? And then when they saw the numbers, and obviously, like, you know, young people talking about it all over the place, they were like, oh my God, it's actually popular. People actually, like, you know, like it. So we cannot take it back now. So now they're, you know, more prone to engage with the charity that we work with and actually use it as a tool. So for example, when COVID started, they wanted to, like, you know, use it as a service for COVID, you know, information. And we told them, well, actually, it's not the best idea, because then it's going to just, you know, boost in terms of user numbers, and you're not going to be able to maintain it. But they still used it for some parts of the campaign, so it was still kind of like promoted on Facebook and everywhere. So yeah, so now kind of like I don't see that much of a resistance. Similarly with like a Rainbow, at first there was a lot of questions about, so for example, we focused on the reporting side of things. So we were thinking, okay, we can use it as a tool for reporting. And immediately we saw how like everyone in the room was like, what? You want to increase reporting? Nobody wants that. Are you kidding? Don't do it to us. So obviously we had to work together with this organization. But more importantly, we just discovered through, you know, user experience research that this is not what people are ready for at the moment. At the moment, which what they need is the realization kind of journey. So when they actually start thinking about it, you know, approach a chatbot, start texting it, learn about the abuse, learn about their situation, and they're like, okay, it's actually, not really good, and I actually have a lot of ways to escape and, get help, and it's not normal, so for a lot of people that don't report abuse, they don't report it not because of the, some issue with the police, but it's also because they don't really understand that it's something that they need to report on to police. I don't know if I answered that question. Any more questions?
That was the one so far. So yeah, I think it was well answered anyway. So yeah, the resistance from governments. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I'll try to continue. I'll try to be faster because we only have 30 minutes left. So let me just quickly tell you why AI for Good. So we were founded by an ethical AI technologist, like a very prominent one, like a global voice in AI, Kriti Sharma. So Kriti was, head of AI, I think at Sage, which is like a big software accounting software provider in the world, one of the biggest probably. And she also was a Google, Grasshopper scholar. She worked in Barclays, I think, before, in many organizations, and she's still kind of like out there influencing some governments, some bigger companies, and yeah, obviously, like for her, it was one of these days when she was like, oh my god, I have the skills, I know what's happening here, I need to do something about it. So she decided to quit her job and found this organization. It was like really cool. And we have a mission of helping 100 million vulnerable people. So we're not just like a technical or a technology company that just sells technology. We actually we have a mission, we have a purpose, and this is why every time we focus on a project, for us, like, it's a long lasting relationship because we want to achieve some impact with our partners. And then in terms of how do we make it happen, so we have this interesting model. Oh, sorry, my mouse slipped. So basically, the model that we use is we have to partner with two types of organizations. So one is the domain expert, and without domain experts we cannot do anything. Why? Because these guys, whatever problem area you take, they have the most knowledge that they have accumulated for like a number of years, usually over a dozen, maybe like one organization that we work with have been in this field, I think for the last 50 years, dealing with the situation on the ground, so like working with real people, helping them. So obviously they know what works, what doesn't, how to approach this vulnerable groups and how to help them in the best possible way, how to include them in the solution process. So for us, it's really important that we work with these organizations. Without them, we won't be able to achieve what we have achieved so far, and we are very grateful to them. And for them, we try to build products that are actually designed to extend their capacity, extend their reach, and help more people. So obviously through chatbots, how like as a small organization you might only help a handful of people, having a helpline, maybe some specific visiting hours. With a chatbot you can reach to thousands and millions out there. So hopefully this is something that we help them to achieve. Another type of organizations that we have to have included in the process is the funding organization. So usually they're charitable foundations like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or any type of Twilio, for example, has its own fund, which is like actually a commercial private organization, but they have a fund for tackling gender equality. So we work usually with like either like CSR organization or big charitable foundations in every area. We make sure that whatever kind of like impact that we create is captured in the right way, so according to the metrics that they have, and we communicate it back to the funding organization. So obviously they give the money to the charity, and the charity has to prove that whatever money that they were giving was used for good purposes, and actually like help them to achieve some impact. So, communicating these numbers and communicating the activity through our kind of like products is really, really important in the cycle. So we create this cycle of, knowledge where we work with partners, and we also bring them together on the journey. So it's really important that we educate them about the AI, about, the ethical side of things, about, data, which is like a really, really big deal for us. So not a lot of charities are aware of, how data can be misused or used for, bad purposes by, different actors. And obviously for us, it's really important. If we work with a vulnerable community, we cannot make them even more vulnerable by, exposing their data. And making them a target, essentially. So we need to make sure that everything is secure, protected. Privacy is by design, not just, as a tick the box exercise. So for example, in our chatbots, we're not collecting any data apart from, messages, which is like, one of the key things that we designed in the first place. And now I'm going to talk quickly about one of our interventions, Rainbow. So just to give you a little bit more kind of flavor of what it could be like. So Rainbow is a smart gender-based violence support service. And we talk there about gender-based violence. So it's a global problem. I don't know if you guys know, but 1 in 3 women experience gender-based violence in their lifetime. But most importantly, or shockingly, I would say, is that 38%, which is more than 1/3 actually, of murders of women are committed by their intimate partner. And if you think about it, it's the people that they trust the most, that they love, that they want to share their life with, maybe the parents of their kids. So obviously for us, it's like, one of the really important kind of aspects that when we work with this women specifically in this area, but also any other type of genders, we need to remember that, it's not very easy to report on someone who you love and you trust and you've been together for a long, long time. Also, it's not very easy if you have children. It's not very easy if you share the same house, the same household, and to leave this place just like this, just because everyone tells you, oh, you need to run. This person is really dangerous for you. It's not very easy. It's like, believe me, it's like one of the most difficult areas, because it's also very personal. It's very sensitive to people who experiences. The topic is very lonely. And yeah, a lot of studies basically suggest that, if you create this environment where the, potential victim or survivor is supported with better cohesion, with trust around the issue, where they can actually, open up and talk about it and actually explain themselves, why they're in this situation, what happened to them, this type of stuff. I mean, like, this type of environment is really, really important for them. The more kind of like supported the environment is, the more cases will be reported in the end of the day, because people will understand the consequences better as well. And there's a lot of culture of victim blaming and shaming, particularly in South Africa where we work. So the issue is institutionalized. So when we talk about gender-based violence, it's kind of like a norm in the society. So if you go to your even like sometimes close friend or a family member, you can hear such words as like, this is your own problem, this is your family, don't go out and talk about it. It's very normal, it happened to me in my life many times, so it's not a big deal, deal with it on your own, don't talk about it. And obviously for us, it's another kind of like reason why we wanted to create Rainbow, because obviously you don't have anyone to talk to because nobody takes you seriously, really. So it's a very, very sad reality of gender-based violence. And particularly in the lockdown, we've seen how the amount of incidents increased, but also the tension between the perpetrators and the people that are abused. So we know that in the Hubei province of China, where actually COVID started, they had 3 times more reported cases during the first lockdown, and it's only the first lockdown. In South Africa, after a month, I think, of lockdown, there were like 21 murders. Can you imagine? 21 murders and 2,300 something cases reported. So calls on the domestic violence helpline. So charities in this area, they were just so overwhelmed. 70% of them said that they had to reduce their service delivery because of the tech challenges, but also because they were like really worried about their beneficiaries. They were like worried that if they proactively try to call and help or something, they might put this person in danger, because obviously you are trapped with your perpetrator 24/7. So there's no way to go to the other room and talk privately on the phone. It's really dangerous. So this is why we think that things like Rainbow, services like Rainbow can really support in these difficult times, because it's a smart chatbot service, doesn't require any particular thing apart from having access to internet and maybe some sort of a smartphone that allows you to use Facebook Messenger, for example. You can also access Rainbow through our website, which is highrainbow.org. In this case, you don't even need to log into Facebook, so you don't need to leave your traces or your information anywhere and chat anonymously. So the type of information that Rainbow provides is obviously all designed with like psychologists and people working in this area for a long period of time. We focus a lot on the science of abuse, on the kind of like how to recognize it early, how to understand what is and what is not normal in relationships. We also kind of introduce the bot straight away as a robot, not a real person, so that people know that they're actually dealing not with a human being, but with a type of service which is automated. And actually, and very surprisingly for us, people tend to open up a lot more to a chatbot than to a real human being. Probably because we humans have a lot of biases and prejudice, and generally, like when you speak to the other human, you kind of like consider yourself being watched all the time, and whatever you say has to be very refined. With the chatbot, it's like, oh, who cares? I can type whatever I want. So they do a lot of mistakes when they type. They open up in terms of their situation. They share a lot of like very concerning but very kind of like honest information about what's happening in their life. So it's a really, really good place to just vent. Sometimes this is what people need, and obviously to seek help as well, and to actually learn and educate yourself about the type of abuse that exists there, because not a lot of people know that abuse and violence is not only about physical violence. It's also like financial control, coercive control, digital abuse or online abuse. There's a lot of other types that we don't really talk about, and we think it's normal because everyone does it to us. But learning about it, you actually realize, oh my god, there's a lot of bad stuff happening out there. And also another thing that we do with Rainbow is we try to make sure that the persona that the bot is using is very friendly. It's very kind of like peer-to-peer tone of voice. So it's not the kind of preaching kind of like a senior person like trying to tell you what to do and how to act with your personal life, which is like very, again, you don't want anyone to intervene in the situation. But the bot is like very friendly. It's kind of like, oh, not kind of pushing you to do anything. You kind of explore it at your own pace. At the same time, there's some quizzes where you kind of like, for example, are asked to answer what is normal, what is not. And if you answer something which is like, that's totally normal, happened to me many times, the bot can be like, wait a second, no, this is not. So being very straightforward to you, like as if your sister would probably talk to you, like being, hey girl, no, this is not what you do. So really interesting kind of like persona process. So the way we developed it, it was like with a conversational designer. So it like a lot of effort went into it, believe me. So, and we try to maintain it. So whenever we write new dialogues, new flows, we need to make sure that we maintain that persona and tone of voice. And then in terms of other features, so obviously it's 24/7 available to you. You can chat to it, you know, at any point. We realized that a lot of times domestic abuse and violence happens outside of the standard working hours. So in the evenings and on the weekends, whilst, you know, helplines and standard charity working hours are about, you know, 9 to 5. So obviously it's kind of like providing this extension of the service and hopefully, you know, covering that gap in service provision in this area. Obviously, it's discreet and safe. We don't store any personal data. You can have, you know, multiple conversations. You can, you know, explore it at your own pace. The language is constantly improving. So when we started 2 years ago, obviously we didn't have any data to train the algorithm on. Right now we have, you know, millions of conversations that constantly are going back into the model that we use, and kind of like keep up training or retraining the model to make it more and more sophisticated, kind of like to understand different combinations of words. So not just keywords, but actually like whole phrases and even the place in the conversation where you are right now, to understand the context behind it as well. So obviously we launched it in South Africa 2 years ago, after months of user research, very meticulous human-centered design process. We surveyed over 100 of actually survivors of domestic violence and abuse to you know, carefully tailor the conversations to create the story. So one big kind of like chunk of the rainbow is actually sorry, it's the next slide, is actually stories of like real people. So it gives users this feeling that A, there are other people like me, and B, there's a way to escape. So you can see how the story starts from like a seemingly good romantic relationships all the way to, you know, very dangerous points where, you know, people were threatened and their life there were threatened. Then kind of like them deciding to leave or do something about it, maybe staying and maybe seeing the consequences later, how it kind of affected their kids, for example, or their, you know, mental health and stuff like that. So generally you kind of like see how the scenario evolves, and in front of your eyes you kind of like can imagine what can happen to you if you don't do anything, and kind of like let it, you know, flow. And basically it's like a trigger, you know, this particular type of content. So a lot of people start thinking about, oh my god, I need to do something about it. How do I do it, you know, in a safe way so that my abuser doesn't know anything, doesn't get suspicious, this type of stuff. So obviously like my rights is another interesting section that we developed after analyzing the conversations that we generated in the first year. So a lot of people were asking questions about how to get protection order, how to get a divorce, how to protect their children, and to kind of like retain custody. And basically a lot of questions that people ask, and you know, we explore on the bot, then go into the pipeline, you know, back into our roadmap. So we know that, okay, this is something important to our users, and we need to continue and evolve and improve this bot and make the information really kind of like for them. And another thing that we started to collect is obviously feedback. So in terms of feedback, generally like very positive. Some people suggest ways to improve, and we obviously act on it. A lot of people say thanks for being there for me, or you're great, or saying thanks for being not judgmental and friendly. One lady said, I left him, exclamation mark. So for us it was like a very cool, you know, type of news. Obviously we were really impressed by it, that we managed to achieve such a kind of like positive outcome for someone. And obviously COVID-19 was like, you know, in mind. Last year we realized that a lot of people were asking questions about where to get even medical help. And usually we try not to kind of change the bot to that new area unless it's like something relevant to GBV. In this case, we were like, no, COVID is like a really, really important topic for everyone. So we created a resource, like a separate page, everything about COVID with all the different information resources, and generally kind of like trying to support people in the situation with a small talk even. So like another interesting development there. And how-to guides, also something that we discovered last year when we were creating the legal content. We realized that all the legal, information is usually super heavy, very long, really hard to follow, really hard to keep in your head, especially if you're in a rush or like trying to keep it discreet, right? Like you don't want to leave any trace out there, like a piece of paper with like a checklist. So we created this how-to guides as like, a carousel of cards. So basically you have, quick steps on how to, for example, apply for the protection order, or what could serve as an evidence in the court for a divorce case. And basically you can just take a screenshot, for example, or just like memorize it relatively quickly, or go back to it whenever you need it. And it's there, and it's like very illustrative, and it's very simple. Just gives you very straightforward information instead of this long list of explanation.
So
Yeah.
we've got a quick question from Karina. So she's asking, oh, we've got two questions.
Sure.
Oh yeah, so we've got two different questions. So there we go, from Karina. So the first one is, what if someone is in and I think it's a very good question actually. So what if someone is in an emergency situation? What happens then, and how does their AI react? How would the chatbot react, as it were?
So in terms of emergency, in the very first place where you start the conversation, you're asked to kind of like go through a safety quiz, and safety quiz acts as a triage system, basically. So we kind of like behind the scenes, we score for every single answer. And if the score is too high and we know the person is like an imminent risk right now, straight away we send them to the, domestic violence helpline, or like, urgent service providers. And if they are not very high on this, scale, obviously we just make sure that we monitor. So throughout the conversation, the bot will be paying like extra attention if you, for example, mention something like, I want to kill myself, or somebody threatens me. Obviously, the way people talk about abuse is very different from the general understanding. So you can see on this slide, for example, we analyzed the data, and only 1 in 1,000 people actually mention words such as violence, rape, or abuse. So usually they say there's something off with my relationships, or my partner loves me but shows affection in a different way. And obviously you kind of have to train the algorithm to understand that, this type of words, the combination of these words can signal as a threat, or like, this person is in danger. So at any point when you kind of like use a certain combination of words that, the algorithm has already been trained on to recognize as like, danger, intent, then we straight away, show them the resources and ask them to kind of like contact the services straight away, because obviously we cannot call the police on their behalf, they have to do it themselves. And yeah, it's what we need to do. So in terms of triage and kind of like providing urgent help, it's definitely in the bot to recognize.
So the second question, the follow-up question is, and again, I think a really good question from Karina. If users are from different countries with different laws, how does the AI adapt to give accurate advice and not be misleading? And I think that's a really good one. I mean, even for a single country, knowing all the laws and applicabilities is already a headache. So.
Yeah, that's why we try to scale very slowly, and we don't just do it because, oh yeah, we have proven that the service is really successful. No, right now it's only for South Africa. All the resources, all the contact centers, all the direct service providers in this area, they're all for South Africa. And they were specifically kind of monitored by our partners in South Africa, Soul City Institute of Justice, to make sure that the services are still available, that they're at capacity, delivering help, responding to the need really urgently, and kind of like generally have good reputation. So right now we are talking about launching Rainbow in the UK, and we want to have a lot more partners available in the space. So we are now talking to NHS Trust, we're talking to housing societies in different parts of the UK, because these people are actually, it comes first to them, usually not even the police so far. It's been kind of like more to the burden for the charities and the NGOs in these areas. And honestly, the more partners we have, the better. But every time we kind of add a new resource on the list, we need to be careful about, who this organization, who the people behind this organization, how long is it been in place? Is it going to die like in a few months' time and people won't be able to reach out? So we need to make sure that the organization is a long-standing body and it's going to be for them for a while, for sure. That's why we scale very carefully, yeah.
Another question, really good questions are pouring in. This one is from anonymous attendee. Still, thank you for the question. So, hi Alice, when you start a project, will you consider the availability of data? So what sources are recommended to draw data from? What is the possible solution when it involves copyright?
So first of all, data is, as you can see with the rainbow, it's not necessary for, for example, for conversation service such as Rainbow. Obviously, it depends what kind of like algorithm, what kind of solution you're building or project you're working. For Rainbow, we started first as like, we launched like a dummy kind of like chatbot that was not even like AI powered. I mean, it was basic kind of algorithm recognizing keywords, but not really kind of something self-learning and self-improving at first, because we needed to generate this data first. So when we generated enough data to go into the algorithm that is actually kind of like constantly evolving, then we switched straight away. And this is how you usually need to start small and kind of like also use very simple technologies. You don't need to be embarrassed about it, especially if you're a charity, you don't have that much of money and luxury to, choose what technology to use today. The most important thing with charities is to make sure that this, on their roadmap, it moves them closer to their goal, right? So if the goal is to have AI that actually understands and speaks on your behalf to like a user, obviously you need to get better data. But to get better data, you actually can launch a very simple service in the first place.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for answering and thank you for the great questions. Yes.
Okay, so let me just show you a few more slides and then I'll finish. So in terms of features, I already told you everything about it. Right now it's available on Facebook. We are looking to launch it on WhatsApp and other platforms as well, because for us, it's really important to find people where they already are and not to invent new apps, for example, that people have to download. And, also like, it's creating a lot of duplication, I think, in this area. So we try not to. Whilst like a chatbot can be placed on any website. So for example, if you're a charity, you can place Rainbow widget on your website and kind of like, here you go. You don't need to create the service from scratch. So in terms of impact, I told you about the users and the conversations, 1 million conversations, 20,000 users. It's probably more right now because this data was collected like in January. So 80% of the feedback is positive. The most kind of popular kind of like types of content that we have on our chatbot is stories and quiz, accessed and like, finished by almost 70% of users. And 70 messages exchanged and 10 minutes, engagement rate, very, very kind of good, very healthy. Obviously, we need to make sure that we balance it. So we don't want the people to stay for too long on the bot and to get addicted to it as well, because it's not our goal. But at the same time, we see people coming back to us. So there's a good retention rate as well. So it's quite like a healthy kind of intervention in general. So we're sure that, if we do a proper like impact evaluation study with a third-party organization, for example, we'll see like very good results. And actually we have been doing it already with a number of organizations, like research organizations in this area. And then in terms of recognition, so we have received a lot of awards, including a UNESCO Innovation Award in 2019, and the Prime Minister's Points of Light Awards as well. So like generally kind of like a very well recognized kind of tool with lots of partners involved, from Twilio to Sage to HEAL, which is like the Hague Institute of Social Justice, and it's kind of their innovation arm that is working with us in South Africa as well. And then besides, this projects that I told you about, we have a community. So this is probably that you guys might be interested in, because you can join. So community was launched in 2019. We invite people from all sorts of backgrounds. We have created lots of projects already. Right now we have 3. One is about data to combat gender-based violence or domestic violence. And another one is about climate misinformation or climate change, and building like a plugin to detect misinformation in all the types of information that you read online. And the third one is about modeling COVID-19 for refugee camps. So kind of like predicting how the disease will kind of play out in the camp situation, and how to kind of like minimize the impact. So like reduce the number of fatalities, increase like health care capacity and stuff like that. So very interesting projects. Anyone welcome to join. We have meetups. We meet every other week. You can join on our meetup page, and basically, with this community, we are trying to build an ecosystem with lots of different organizations involved, and build more projects in this area, because as I told you, we're a small company, we cannot do everything, but you guys can, and this is why I invite you to join our community. We have community principles that you can see on this slide. You can also find it on our blog and on our website. They're all explained. I can send you the link afterwards. Generally, people really enjoyed being part of this community, because they found the project really challenging, in people like with very diverse backgrounds, which is rarely the case. Usually technologists just work with technologists. In our community, we try to make sure that there's diversity of skills, of thought, of passion to do good. And finally, this is the link to join our community meetup. The next one is actually tonight. It's going to be climate misinformation challenge. If you want to join, please just go to our meetup page, find the AI for Good community, and you can sign up for it. These are the contact details. humans@AI for Good is our email. Right now we are not hiring anyone, but you can just stay involved and up to date, and if you want to join later, you can always send me an email. That's it from us. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so we'll draw to a close. So thank you so much, Alice. I'm sure everyone needs to run off back-to-back meetings and whatnot. Just a quick plug. Awesome. We're getting good positive feedback and comments. So just a quick plug. So tomorrow we've got another talk by Strovola Krappa. That will be on AI in the law. And before you think it's a dry subject, we'll be talking about things like, if you have an AI algorithm that creates artwork, who does the artwork belong to? Does it belong to the algorithm? Does it belong to a programmer, or does it belong to everyone? So we'll be talking about that and more tomorrow. And then on Friday, we'll have Carmen Ventre, who will talk about, again, that will be AI in finance, much like a mirror talk to today, but a bit of a different perspective and more of research. And then finally, our last speaker on Friday will be, just so I don't get the name wrong, Gustavo Pereira from Spotify, who'll be talking about their customer clustering techniques for their music app. So obviously a lot more interesting content. Make sure that for this session, you connect obviously with Alice. And again, thank you, everyone. And yeah, I'll see you in the other talks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Bye.